screen. Are we live?
And it's happening. Bar there, we're at 50%. Going live. Oh, right on time too. And
right.
something happening.
I like how you look at the camera every time you take a drink of the cup. It's like,
oh, do I really?
no, it's really good. Don't change a thing. It's like Musicmedic.
Do this like
Yeah.
as well.
I think that would work. I think that's good. You know, we have me and Ryan, and we need more. You know, we need more. Well, anyway, I won't say anything sexist while we're live. We're live.
Is this good?
How come Ryan gets all the light?
I own all the equipment, all the
All
lighting.
right, we're live. We're live, so don't say anything rude now. I need more light.
It's going to be very difficult.
You need a spotlight just over you.
You know, with a spotlight, though, I don't want to say anything, but there's like
The glare.
there's kind of a glare. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. I shaved my head when I had a full head of hair, so it's not like I went bald and shaved, so it's different. Let me see if I can get. I want to see us live.
Yeah, we're up there.
Oh yeah, we're live. Okay, so we're good. So do we need a we'll be right? We're working on it.
I think we're working on it now. This is happening.
People can see that we're not started yet.
Go time.
Okay.
Cool.
If you're one of the 7,000 viewers right now, then you can relax because we're going to take a minute while the other people come in. My mom is going to be here. So we need to just relax. So Lauren, this is your house?
This is my house, yeah.
Do you repair in your house or just for this video?
Only time I repaired in my house is when all the COVID stuff started and we shut down for a little bit. So I repaired out my house for like a month. So it was good. It was nice. It was different. But yeah, I only do it now just for occasions like these, special occasions. So
did you like move all these plants behind you, or are they is your house naturally so beautiful and planty?
It's naturally beautiful and planty. You can ask all my coworkers. I love plants. There's even more that you can't even see.
Wow. And so your coworkers come to your house?
I mean, once in a while, but I even have plants at the office, like in my window up above. So I have greenery, a bunch of aloe plants, which is handy if you burn yourself in the shop. You can just apply right away.
You need that.
Yeah.
You need that in the shop. We need aloe.
I can see.
Yeah, or if you get a sunburn on your,
Oh yeah.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, really handy. Now I have all kinds of plants, and now I like starting to get into like exotic plants now. Yeah.
It looks like you got normal stuff. That's a money tree behind you.
Yeah, I have
right?
a couple money trees. I got like 4 of those. I have a bunch of pothos plants, spider plants. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, if you're just tuning in, by the way, we haven't started yet. This is the couple minutes before that normally we would put a sign up, like a "we'll be right back" sign, but we don't want to have a sign. We want to be we're the sign. But if you just tuned in, the nice thing about a sign is that it's always there. So I have to keep saying this for a few minutes anyway, right? Ryan, say something witty.
Something witty.
That's terrible.
Is that it? I stayed up late for that too.
How does everybody get themselves so big? Are you like sitting this close to your computer? Like it's like right there.
This is thousands of dollars of equipment to make me look.
Is there like a function on your camera that you're able to did you zoom it in or?
It's the embiggen feature. I think it's the command and then B for biggin, make it bigger.
I think I was just too low.
That's it. Yeah.
I think I was too low.
Yeah.
Like your little
Who is it?
I'm
in.
Yeah.
It's working. All right, cool. All right, I feel better now. Now we're all the same. Yeah. Same, like a good space.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. No,
oh, so Ryan, you're up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm up here. You're down there. See, let's like we kind of point.
Wow, but that's not what I see. That's not what I see.
I have everything in a nice row.
On the side, yeah. Mine is just Brady Bunch style. Everybody's everywhere. So.
Well, we have some folks here watching. Should should we get in 10:05? We'll start. It's 10:04 right now. So don't go away. Just wait one more minute. Bear with us for one more minute. Lauren, I wish that we maybe in this time we should have shown your fabulous, can I
Oh, yes.
the bourbon collection. Lauren has the best bourbon collection. I sort of pride myself on my delicious bourbon, but I have this, I mean, I won't call it a drinking problem, but the problem is that I drink the best stuff. Do you have that problem, Lauren? Like you drink the best bourbon first?
No, I actually.
You have Pappy.
Yeah, I have Pappy, and only one bottle is opened, and I only opened it for a
God.
special occasion. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think my the oldest bourbon I have is like a 24-year-old one, and I haven't opened that one yet. So
Wow. See, I open them up. Yeah. I'm in my Jeep on the way home from the store. I'm like, yeah. I mean, there's no time like the present, sometimes in line, but they know me. They know I'm good for it,
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Taste test it
Yeah.
first. No, I'm like weird with like the nicer stuff. I only like drink it a little bit because I know it's hard to get, and it's just so good.
Yeah, I just drink the best one I have. I open my cabinet and I'm like, that's the tastiest one, and then I drink it. It's weird. I'm trying not to do that, but anyway.
Lee Hirschman says hello.
Hey Lee, we got some people here. Let's get started, folks. Let's do it. Let's get started right now.
It's happening.
Okay. Lauren, I'm going to take him.
3, 2, 1, go.
Are we live? Right. All right, here we go. Lauren, I'm going to take a second and introduce you. And, obviously we've been friends for a long time, and I'm really happy about our friendship and to know you and to have a flute friend, because, I'm a saxophone guy, and flute friends are very, very useful people. I think we met first at Red Wing. You were a student at Red Wing, and of course you were focusing on flute at Red Wing and doing some great flute stuff while you were at Red Wing. And if I remember correctly, that caught the attention of a very well-known company called Flute Authority, right? And I guess before Red Wing, let me back up. Before Red Wing, you got a bachelor's degree in music ed, and you focused on flute, right?
Yeah, I mostly focused on flute, but also thought I would be a teacher, but then decided to take a different path and went to repair school instead.
So you went right from undergrad to repair school?
Yeah.
Cool. And then I met you at repair school, and I knew that you were awesome on flute. And then you went and then you got a job at the Flute Authority, right?
Yeah.
And you have. So since you've gotten that job at Flute Authority, and that's a very prestigious job, and as we all know, the Flute Authority is taking flutes in from all over the world by mail. I understand that most of the business at Flute Authority is professional flutes through the mail, right?
Yeah, most of our clients mail their flute into us for repair.
So there's 4, and when you say us, there's 4 techs working on flutes all the time at Flute Authority with a total of over 55 years experience, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
You don't look that old, Lauren. So, but not 9 or 10 of those years are you, right?
Yeah, 9 years I've been working on flute. So yeah.
Awesome. So the Flute Authority, you left Red Wing, you went to the Flute Authority, you've been hammering out pro flutes for the last 9 years there. But then I also know that you're also busy traveling to shows. I've seen you at NAPERT conventions. We've hung out at NFA. And I know you've given clinics all over the place. You've given clinics at universities, and you've given clinics at flute conventions. And usually all about flute, right?
Yeah, it's always about flute, just basic flute maintenance, teaching flute players how to take care of their flute, and things like that. Yeah.
Cool. So to go to where you're working at Flute Authority, you guys, I guess you have a new website now, and the website has some cool. Tell us about your website a little bit at Flute Authority, will you?
Yeah, we just redesigned our website. It's all brand new. We're super proud of it. Has some awesome features on it, like the repair gallery. You can see before and afters of some of the repairs we've done. It has a really cool slider feature on there. You can also read all about each technician. And then we also have something super awesome, online scheduling too, where you can just schedule with any of us 24/7 at your own convenience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you can get online, you can have your broken Miramatsu,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe you're a flute player, it's a Miramatsu, it's just, you just feel that maybe it's broken. And then you can get online, you can choose, like scroll down, choose Lauren. You can say, I want Lauren to fix this. And then you can enter your information if you're not already in there. And then you send your flute to Lauren at Flute Authority in Coralville, Iowa. And Lauren fixes it and sends it back.
It's magic. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's so beautiful. It's so, you're the Ryan of the flute world. What was that?
Nobody wants to be the Ryan of anything.
All right, Lauren, you talk softer than us and we're two dudes, so we're going to try not to talk over you. But let me just, before I turn it over to you, Lauren, let me just say that you are working at Flute Authority, I said, but it's fluteauthority.com. And that's where people can go to get you to do the work on their flute. And they will be very lucky if they do that. So now
link in the comments.
There will be a link in the comments. Good job, Ryan.
Thanks.
Doing it. I'm trying.
Okay, without further ado, Lauren, you are going to tell us about the left-hand stack on a flute and how to fit that sucker.
Yeah, totally. So let me move my Musicmedic coffee cup out of the way here.
Spotlight in the video. Here we go.
Oh, fancy. So I mostly work on professional flutes, but I see this problem across the board on student and professional flutes, and it's a pretty easy fix. So usually what happens on the left-hand rod is when people screw it in too far, it will create the left hand and bind. When I unspring this, you'll see the B flat key will bind. And what technicians will do just as a quick fix is just then back out the screw just like a half a turn, and then the key's not binding anymore. But then what usually ends up happening is that whole rod ends up backing out, and then we get a panic phone call from a flute player because their flute's not playing. But it's a pretty easy fix, and it takes just like a minute or two. So let me just show you problem. When I unspring it, you'll see that this B flat key, now it doesn't fall freely like it should. That's because now this rod, I pushed it in too far. That's because that's what's happened, and people unback it out. So the way to fix it is you have to take the rod out, and you're going to put it in your bench motor. And what you're going to do is you're going to sand the taper of the end of the rod to where it's going to fit better within the left hand assembly. Let me get that out. So, and what I do to sand it is I'll grab like a ruler. That way I just have a flat edge on there, and use sandpaper. I usually use either 1500 or 1200 grit. 1200 is a little bit more aggressive, so just be a little bit careful. That's what I like to use. And then you're just going to sand the end of the pivot, and just make sure when you're sanding to keep that angle of the taper with the angle that you're sanding, because if not, you'll then create more lateral play, which then that's just a bigger problem. You have more work to do than to fix that. So now I'm just sanding it to match that angle a bit better in the left hand assembly. And just do a little bit at a time, just so you can make sure that you're keeping your angle correctly, and then you quit that binding problem as well. So I'm just going to check it here, and always check it with the key unsprung, because obviously when I just showed it before, the key was sprung and it didn't look like there was an issue until I unsprung the key.
Not to interrupt, but we do have a question that says, what if the rod is a box pivot rod Usually Yamaha models get loose, especially on student models.
When they get loose.
Yeah, but saying yeah, rod is a box pivot rod. So
Box pivot rod.
box.
If the left hand is loose, what you can do is then file on that shoulder of the rod to make the rod sink in deeper. But just make sure that you're keeping your file parallel when you're facing that end of the rod, and make sure, especially in your file, that you're using the end when you're filing that's not the serrated cutting portion. That way you're not cutting through the end of the pivot too. That's a key thing to learn. Yeah, and when you're filing then back onto that to make sure that rod sinks in further, then don't forget to take off the burr off the top too from facing the end of the shoulder of it as well. Otherwise it won't really go in, and then you're gonna scratch up the inside of your hinge tube of your upper C key. So as you can see now,
Hey, Lauren, can I interrupt for a second? I'm sorry. I know you got your, but I just want to make sure, because I'm just a saxophone guy, but so the rod that you're working on is like this, and it has a pivot end, right?
yeah.
And so then it goes into a key, and when you tightened it in, it's this key that's binding?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you're doing is then keeping that taper, and what you do is just lessening that so that way it fits better within the left hand B flat key. So now as you can see, my key is now falling freely. But another thing to check now from doing that is just to make sure that you're, as you can see, now my C key is not my upper C key. And so usually a problem with that is either your C key is either too tight within the post if you've just done some key fitting, or that shoulder that I was just talking about isn't squared against the post. So then you have to then square it up with your file and just make sure that your C key then doesn't bind, and just make that flush all together. So then you're going to chuck it back in your bench motor.
Which shoulder are you talking about, Lauren? Can we see that?
Of the
Or,
hinge rod,
or that one doesn't have a shoulder, right? Or does it?
yeah, what I'm talking about is the shoulder right here of the hinge rod, the shoulder.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So that one does, I mean, they all have the shoulder on there.
Yep.
And I have an example of a different pivot from Piccolos. You want that left hand a little bit loose just for the wood, compensating for the wood moving. So you then kind of do the same method as you would for less, that file motion of keeping the angle to then lessen or to create movement within the left hand. So now what I'm going to do is square up my shoulder of that rod. That way my upper C key now is going to, well, it goes flush against the post. So let me. So just making sure that it's just staying straight. I'm not trying to create an angle. And I would just do a little bit at a time, just because you don't want to take too much off and then create the problem of then sinking that rod in too far again. Then you have a whole binding issue again.
Can I ask a question, Lauren?
Yeah.
So when you were squaring up that shoulder, you put it in the bench motor, you just put it in there to hold it? Or maybe I couldn't hear the bench motor, but were you spinning it and hitting it with the file, or were you?
Yeah, so you put it in the bench motor, chuck it down, and then you're going to take your file and you're just going to put it in between your threads and that shoulder. That way you're trying to face that edge of the shoulder and square it up just to make it parallel again, because right now it's probably at an angle or one side's not even enough. And that's why it's making that upper C key bind on there. And I think you can do just to check to see if it's the rod or it's the key itself is if you have a spare rod, put in another rod. And obviously if the key's falling freely, then the rod's your problem. But if it's still doing it with the rod, then your C key is probably then just a little bit too tight in those posts. So then you can just trim a little off of the hinge tubes of those. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And then this is where, because you're putting that file in that place, that's why you said make sure you use the part that doesn't have teeth on it on the file, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One wants to learn not to do it the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah, it takes me a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just still just facing that and squaring it up there. So well, make sure you have your rod completely straight in there too. Yeah, so once I'm like doing my file in with that shoulder, I then just touch the top of the hinge rod itself just to take that burr off too. So just don't forget that either. So then I'm just going to check it again. And you can do this too with the pinless left hands and a flute assembly as well, that go all the way through. Do a little bit more.
So you're putting it in there and you're still feeling it binding, right?
Yeah, I am.
So you're taking a little bit more off the shoulder each time?
Yeah, I am just taking a little bit off, and now I'm just checking my key because I can feel there's a little bit of dirt in there. I'm just kind of rubbing that out. So right now, I just feel dirt in there, so I'm just trying to just burnish that out. I'm gonna take that shoulder off. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more. It's like almost there.
You feel it like getting better each time?
Yeah, you could just kind of like, it's not as sluggish, but it's just like a little bit of a catch. You could just kind of feel that as you're feeling the key go up and down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cloudy. Feels cloudy.
Yeah, cloudy's a good word.
Just a little cloudy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get that in there. This is probably gonna do it.
So I missed it that time. Did you just use the file or just the sandpaper?
Just the file, just to do that shoulder. So you only use the sandpaper when you're just trying to fix the taper of the end of the hinge rod for that pivot part.
Okay.
And as you can see now, my C key falls freely after facing that up, that shoulder to the post to make it all flat and even against there. So now everything should be good to go. So now everything moves pretty freely. The hinge rod is now all the way snug in there. That way you're not going to have it all the way back out when the player's playing as well. So, and that's another thing you can do. I've seen on mostly student flutes where this B flat key, it just has a lot of play in the mechanism. You can just swedge, swedge, and swedge to just with your collet, or if you have like the Nipec swedging pliers, I think those would be great. So you can get towards more of the end and just do that whole end of the rod of this B flat key here. But if it's just so much and you don't want to put an insert in, you can just sink in that hinge rod a little bit further down in there just to create that less play in the left hand assembly. So, and then for piccolo, we actually want play in the left hand. We like to create that just because of the wood moving. So you just kind of do the same thing. And this is a different angle pivot than the one I had before. So, and it's all pretty easy. It doesn't take too long. It's pretty quick fix. So and it's just going to help you and the player not be frustrated. So if you have to take out the left hand a lot and just check all that, and you go to tighten it every time, and then you're backing it out, you're just not doing a justice to yourself or the player. So just correcting that in just a couple of minutes, you'll see you don't have to worry about backing it out every time or everything. I understand if you're in like a bind, but So now I'm just doing the piccolo hinge rod. And so what I'm going to do is actually lessen that taper on the end as well, just because I want that play. In flute, we don't want the play, but in piccolo, we do. So you're just kind of doing the same method again with the sandpaper. I have a ruler at work. I use like a deck of cards that I put my sandpaper on just to have that flat surface. So, and then we just want to keep that angle as well. So if you do mess up the angle, you then have to like recreate it and get that back, which is a big pain, but it is possible to do, and it will take you some time. So it's just key to just make sure to keep the angle and just go slow. If you're too worried about messing that up, just go slow, take a little bit off each time and just check it out.
Hey, Lauren, time out before you start that bench motor.
Yeah.
It's bear with me because, it's not a saxophone. So, but let me just make sure that I'm understanding. So that little rod that you just took out of your piccolo,
yeah,
that little rod is the same as the flute rod that you took out, but smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has like the same function. It's going through the little C key, and if you tighten it down, the pivot is going to bind on the B key.
Yep, on the B key of the left hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure. So and then just to make sure, because I'm so you said that you're gonna try to get the taper, and it's like the same thing I was like before, like it has a taper on the end and it's gonna fit into the little B key. But when you said on flute you don't want the play, but on piccolo you do, I'm assuming that that's because of the material, because the piccolo is made from wood.
Yeah, so wood changes with the temperatures, it shrinks and contracts. It's was a live thing before, but it does react to like the temperature, humidity, and things like that. So we add that little play just because, some months the wood will expand, and then we don't want binding of that left hand because then you can't play your piccolo. Versus flute's metal, it's not really going to do that. So that's why we add like there's 3 spots in the piccolo, we add a little bit of play. So, and that's one of them, just to compensate for the wood moving in it.
So again, bear with me just so I can get it all, because we don't care about, we don't want any play on saxophone, right? So if you were to have a piccolo and the B key had no play, and then you tightened it down all the way, and the B key still had it had no play when you tightened it down, and it bound a little bit, you would be really too big on that, or that thing would be going too far into the key by far, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
And if you tightened it down and the B key was just perfect, it would still be going in a little too far. Is that right? Because you want a little play?
Yeah, you want a little play, even if the hinge rod is still going in just right, but there's no play in the mechanism of that left hand. You still want to create that. That way it just gives just a little bit. I'm not talking about like super sloppy play, but just, just a fraction of play. That way you can just move it a little bit, because that wood will change with the different months. So you want that, but you also don't want to make too much play for like when the wood shrinks and then it's moves a whole lot, because then obviously the key's not going to hit on the tone hole the exact same time and could cause leaks and things like that. So you just make it just barely enough, just enough so you can just feel a little bit of wiggle, but it's not noticeable to the player when they're playing, and that feel in their mechanism.
Somebody did ask, would you want the pivot to fit tight on a plastic or metal body piccolo?
Yes.
Ooh, good question.
Because it's not wood, so it's not going to move around. So yeah, I would just treat like a plastic or metal body piccolo like you would like a flute. So I would on composite, because that's just the hybrid stuff, I would maybe just make a little bit of play just in case, just to compensate in case any of that composite stuff wants to just move a little. But it's just, we're just talking about a little fraction here. So it's not too much, just a couple thousandths. So just a little bit noticeable. But yeah, no, that's a great question.
Cool. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for clearing that up.
Oh no, it's totally different world if you just do saxophones all the time. Totally get, you want everything super tight on that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to lessen this a little bit here. Yeah, and it only, obviously you can see it only takes like about a minute to do. So, and this is what we do when we set up brand new piccolos. Usually when players already have their piccolos, they should already have the play in the left hand. But since we import professional piccolos, we have to do that when they come in just to create that little play in there. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you that question about flutes too, Lauren. Like you said, you know, a lot of technicians, like, I don't know, a lot of but I don't know if you said that, but you had said that one thing that happens is it'll bind and then they'll back it out a little bit and then it will work. And we get that, and the shoulder comes away and the point comes out, and I can conceptualize all that. But like, are you seeing that same problem where the shoulder's not straight and the pivot's fitting too far into the B key? Are you seeing that on new instruments where the little screw is backed out a little, or are they pretty well have that under control on new instruments?
Have it under control. I mean, once in a while you might see something on any level of flute, just kind of depends, but usually I see it on already repaired flutes where someone's tried to do something and they attempted to try to fix the problem, but didn't succeed. So then I see it and then just, you know, correct the problem. That way the player's then happy, because usually I would say probably 9 times out of 10 a player will mention, oh, my left hand continuously backs out, and then they're frustrated because I always have to screw it in. And if you don't get that point like right into the left hand, you can cause problems where it like dings or causes a burr on the very end, that which also can cause your left hand to bind too, not lining it up from like a player standpoint. So, and there's some left hand assemblies where on the left hand that goes into the king post, there's those points that you just have to be careful not to just, you know, kind of rip the whole left hand off, just gently move it, especially in pro line flutes, because those tolerances are just so tight that you just bend that little melt insert into the king post that it will cause the flute to bind, that left hand to bind. So it's another thing, you just kind of have to be careful just putting all the parts together, especially on pro line flutes, if that all makes sense.
Kind of. I don't know what the king post is. Can I see that on a flute?
Yeah. So the king post is it's the magic post that connects right here on the left and right hand. So right here is my right hand. So usually a rod, the whole assembly goes into here, and then your left hand goes into right here. So usually if this, a lot of things can go wrong here, because there's usually on pro line flutes a little insert in there that you can change in and out when you have a play in the mechanism, more like lateral play on the right or the left hand for that. So it kind of just controls, like here's the bridge keys back here for the F and the B flat lever. So it all just kind of comes right here. So it's a pretty important post that you don't want to mess up.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's no flute terms, I guess, that you don't know, just ask away, anyone. For sure.
Yeah, and maybe I'm asking for other people too. I'm not sure, but maybe everyone else knows it but me, and they're like,
oh no,
but thank you.
I just, you know, it's flute world. I just assume everyone knows, but I kind of forget there's other worlds out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just going to finish up this left hand piccolo hinge rod just to create that little bit of play here. And if you're new to doing this, fitting it this way, as you can see, on my sandpaper. I've gone down in a little line, but I start always on a new spot each time when I'm first starting, just to check that angle. But if you're more used to it, then you can probably just start already on a used part to still use up that sandpaper. But I would say if you're new to this method, just start on like the fresh part of the sandpaper just to make sure you have that angle lined up. That's a good way to see. You always can kind of tell if it's off, because it's usually just like a little bit of strip versus when you get it just right, it's more of a wider strip too. So it's a little tidbit for the new beginners.
And what grit is that sandpaper again?
This one is 1200, or you can use 1500, which is a little bit less aggressive. So yeah. I'm used to doing the 1200, so I kind of know where my stopping point is. I'm not going too far, but I also just like to get done a little bit quicker because I'm a little impatient.
That's right. So. Get into that bourbon.
Right.
Yeah, I'll get done quicker.
Yeah. So I can't really see on the camera, but I just made it probably, 4 or 5 thousandths, a little bit of wiggle room of that left hand, just so now it doesn't bind or if the wood ever expands and anything like that too. So yeah, that's what I have for the left hand hinge rod on flutes and piccolos. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask away. Pretty quick.
I have one hard question. I know this is a hard question, but I don't know the answer. It must be such a mind job working on wooden instruments, because like, what if it fits just right and you're in the middle of the winter? Like, are you doing like if you're doing a bunch of piccolos and they're all loose and it's the middle of the winter, is your mind like, yeah, piccolos are terrible in the winter, or they're all loose in the winter and that's how they're going to be? And then you come to one of them and it's not loose and you're like, hey, this one's not loose in the winter. I wonder if it needs a little play, or I wonder if this guy just kept it in his cigar box or something, like how did this happen? I know that seems to me, that sounds like a really hard question, but like, does that go through your mind?
Yeah, I'll get some where the left hand, there's no play at all. And usually if there's no play, I think it's usually in the summertime. Winter, the wood just kind of shrinks a little bit. So usually in winter, I'll look and see and make sure it's not way too much, because it doesn't shift a whole lot, but the wood will shift. And it's the same thing on wooden flutes too. You kind of want to make sure there's that play there as well. So just wooden flutes and piccolos mainly. So yeah, no, in winter I will, if there's no play, I will definitely add some play, because I already know the wood's going to expand in summertime, especially if people live in really humid areas like yourself.
Wow, what a thing. And then when you're doing flutes, it's a wooden flute, and so you have to put like more play into it. But there's no way to measure that, right?
You just kind of get used to just looking at it and kind of knowing, the instruments with like piccolos, it's obviously a little bit smaller piece of wood versus a flute. You can probably add a little bit more in there, but not too much to where the left hand is moving a whole lot, because you obviously don't want those left hand to move too much on the tone holes to create unnecessary leaks, not hitting on the tone hole right each time. So yeah, wow. It's a totally different world once you get to wooden instruments.
Wow. Wow, yeah. Lauren, there's so much little little knowledge that you have, not little, like little bits of knowledge that all must accumulate into your great repairs, that someone is lucky to have all that on their instrument. So
yeah, it's something that a player's not going to think of, but we have to think about, and just makes it easier so they don't call in a panic, later. So yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering all my questions, and thanks for coming here. Ryan, if you have any questions, or
no, it sounded good. Now I have an excuse for when my key fitting is not that tight. I can be, well, it's a woodwind. Yeah, it's a woodwind. It's
really,
but it's a woodwind. So, but no, that's one extra. I mean, key fitting is tough enough to get it super tight, but then to have to deal with that extra variable of a wood instrument that can fluctuate. And like Kurt said, what if you get it when it's real tight and it's wintertime, and summertime happens and gets humid, and then you got to deal with that. So yeah, that's
wow. People who send the flute in like twice a year, so you just, especially like piccolos, you just kind of just check that with the weather conditions. So some people are a little bit more sensitive about it. So that's a good time just to have them send it summer and sometimes winter. So you just keep an eye on all those parts, especially with the instruments where you need that little play in there to compensate for the wood.
Wow. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for coming here. Thanks for being so knowledgeable. And all the people that are watching can go to fluteauthority.com and they can choose Lauren and they can set up a time from the comfort of their homes. And then they can mail the instrument out and it will come back and all this work will be done and they don't have to worry about it. But thanks for sharing it with all of us and all of us that don't know and a bunch of us on here that are also great flute techs, I'm sure, that are watching. So
yeah.
Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
All right, everyone. Thanks for coming and thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week at our next Wednesday Wisdom. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.